Hey there, how you doing? So this is part one of a part two series about Venus retrograde in 2025. This is a kind of mysterious journey for me. I've been on a bit of a mysterious journey recently, and what I want to do is I'm going to use some astrological techniques to give you some guidance on what the retrograde might mean to you, the energies of when it goes direct, the Sabian symbols involved, but also talk about three different points really, which I think are coming up with this astrology, and that is how we might integrate a new kind of earthiness and earthy feminine energy, why embodiment might be coming back in as something that people are talking about, and also how the mysteries, like mystery schools, information that has until recently seemed kind of hidden. I think there's a revelation of the hidden. I think there's a lot of hidden things that are going to be coming out, and how we might relate to those. Venus is a goddess planet known for all things feminine, but she is absolutely about flow and relatedness. I think they are the overarching themes of Venus. Loads of people say, oh, she's a love planet. Well, I think we're underestimating her if we just call her a love planet. She is all about the relatedness that we might have with our partners and our friends and our family, and our relatedness with children and animals and plants and everything we're relating to in our externalized experience. But she's also about like how we relate to well-being. Are we happy to receive income? Are we happy to receive goodness? Or are we kind of putting up a barrier? Because I'm somebody who's put up barriers many times, and still do. I have to remind myself to lower them somewhat. But some people are very related to their well-being, and others, they might need reminding, a little bit of a push or a nudge. So hopefully this video will help in those respects. I was going to record this on Saturday, the day before Venus went retrograde, and I've been talking quite a lot, doing a lot of recording for the Venus point, the 0 point Aries, because there's a lot going on astrologically at the moment, so it's very difficult to know which one to focus on first. But 0 Aries is a big theme that lots of people are talking about right now. It's definitely one of mine. And the transition of the old story of where we are to the new story of where we are. And I woke up on Saturday getting ready to talk about Venus retrograde, and obviously beauty is one of the themes with her, and and how we feel attractive and stuff. And I woke up with a bloody eye, which you might just see the remnants of. Can you see? Hang on. Not entirely sure how. Oh, there you go. No. Anyway, without grossing you out too much, in the night, something inside my eye had just, I don't know, popped or exploded or something. A little blood vessel, completely painless, no symptoms. I've been checked out. So I had a sort of blood-filled eye. And that evening I was doing a webinar for the amazing channel Scorched Earth Tarot. Hello, Carrie, and your beautiful, beautiful community. Thank you for that. So I was doing a webinar with them on 0 point Aries, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm a living example of astrology right now, because Aries is, like when you look at the star signs and our bodies, the zodiac, Aries is all about the head. And if you were to think about blood, you would say, well, that's a real kind of Aries thing. It's so kind of violently red and bold and in the flow. So I had this kind of bloody eye, and I was like, I had no idea how it happened. No pain, no nothing. But I always think these things are a bit of a I think when we get a symptom, it's important to look at what's look at what's going on, look at what we're denying in ourselves, look at the patterns we're not prepared to go into. I also think, the body lets us know when we're not listening to it. And so instead of recording, I took some time off. My husband was very insistent on that. So getting back into my body. And so what is really occurring to me right now is we're coming into this time of great mystery, and of just before Venus retrograde, something is affecting my appearance in a real Aries way, and also in a way that might shock me and take me on a journey into my inner beauty, rather than being focused or worried about how I might be perceived in the external world. So this is very much an internalized journey. I've been off for quite a while. I'm pretty sure if you follow this channel quite a lot, you'll know that. If you're new, by the way, hello, my name's Louisa Tanner-Munson, and this is Feel Good Astrology. And the whole purpose of this is to play with the astrological ideas and kind of dive deep and to enjoy them. Really, I just want people to have the opportunity to feel free and get a sense of clarity and to explore their own mysteries using astrology. So that's why I'm here. So hello. But anyway, so I've been planning to do this, and then just this morning I got three nudges, like goddess nudges. So the first one was, two of them, I got messages in my inbox from different newsletters. I don't subscribe to many newsletters, not astrology ones. The things I research are usually a little bit different. But anyway, I got one from Astro Butterfly, who I believe now has a YouTube channel. But I find the newsletters from Astro Butterfly quite helpful. They kind of list everything down in quite a helpful way, and there's some beautiful words behind it. But they were talking about goddess Inanna and the stories of Inanna and the sort of disappearance of the goddess and the rebirth. There's a whole big story behind it, looking at the Sumerian version of Venus. I mean, Venus is seen under many names: Aphrodite, Freya, Ishtar, Astarte, Inanna. So that got me thinking about the goddess and what it is to be a feminine person, but also, how can we channel our inner Venus? And then I received a message from Dr. Baravi, the sky priestess, who was talking about a tribute to the goddess, very much to the feminine energy. And then I'm meeting Whitney Mullings later, who I work with. She takes me on shamanic journeys and is very much about honoring the inner goddess. And what I want to say right now is, if you're a guy watching this isn't going to preclude you from getting involved, because this isn't about your gender or how you see yourself. And forgive me if I say things in a way that seem not quite right according to your value systems. I'm not trying to hurt or upset or do anything like that. But what I really notice is that we have a masculine and a feminine side within us, each of us. We all have a side to us is more Mars based. I'm definitely quite Martian as well, where we push ahead, we do stuff and we work at quite a pace, where we're really strong and in the flow. And then we also have a feminine side, it's more yielding, a lot more receptive. And so whether you're however you choose to identify yourself, there, that was a bit more well thought out, but however you consider yourself to be, this is really talking about the femininity within you, and the journey of femininity, the journey to meet the mysteries of the goddess and what the goddess might mean to you. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And where I really want to start actually is to give you a sense of you're not alone. There's a lot of resources, and I've got some here that I just want to quickly share with you. Part 2 is going to be revealed around about the 20th. But in the meantime, I've got a Venus playlist, and I think that's the thumbnail on it. That's my Venus retrograde video from 2023. But there's 20 plus useful Venus / love resources that will help you to explore your Venus coding within your birth chart, and also help you understand your suitability with a partner. I always think that some of the strongest love patterns can flip and reverse and become repellent things as well. I really think anyone that we really, really love, we could also end up really, really unloving as well. Venus can, like every planet, can show us a couple of sides. But in these resources, I'm really looking at Venus's relationship with other planets and how they configure. Another resource that's available to you if you choose, I'll be doing a webinar next Tuesday the 11th. It's quite an important Venus day, actually. She's having a conjunction with Mercury. It's going to be for members. I'm starting a Feel Good Astrology community. I mentioned it in my last release, and I kind of went a bit funny and I stopped in my tracks. I will be putting out an invitation at the end. It's a private community. It's a paid membership, but there will be a part 2. And in part 2, so this one that I'm doing today is about the retrograde. The one I'll be doing around the 20th is taking it a bit further and talking about Venus Cazimi and also the Venus star points. Venus makes some great patterns. So when she goes retrograde, she moves in such a way that she creates, like in her whole cycle and her retrograde, she's making a 5-pointed star. Turns out I can't actually draw a 5-pointed star with my finger no matter how much I try. I give up. But I will be talking about that. There's some beautiful research that Ariel Gutman did about the Venus star points, and she's got an amazing book as well, which I'll put the link to in the description field in this video. And so, yeah, I'll be exploring that with members at the webinar on Tuesday the 11th, and also doing a video that might help you understand it a little bit. So yeah, we've got some resources. But anyway, let's have a look, first of all, or understand what you might choose to do right off the bat. So what you could do is bring up your birth chart. This is my birth chart. And bring up your birth chart with transits, if you know how to do this, and bring up the transits for the 2nd of March. And you want to see, you will see Venus going retrograde at 10 degrees 50 in the sign of Aries. So this is where she is in my birth chart when she goes retrograde. And she is going to go retrograde all the way to 24 Pisces. And then she's going to start she's going to start moving forwards again. Now, if you're like, no matter how you're looking at this, you may find that Venus's retrograde will just go through one particular house of your chart. In my case, it's straddling in between the 5th and the 4th house. If you're using whole sign astrology, it will go from your Aries house and into your Pisces house. But you might have it all captured in one house. But, whichever houses are highlighted will describe some of the things that you're going inward on within your journey. So that's the first thing I wanted to kind of share with you. Also worth looking, at the point where Venus goes retrograde, is it impacting your chart? Like, do you have something here that it's in a conjunction with? In my case, there's nothing in a conjunction with it. However, it's in exact opposition to Pluto in my 11th. And you might also see that it's pretty much exactly square my natal Venus in Capricorn. And so you'll see that my Pluto and Venus are in a square. It's also in a square to Saturn. So in my birth chart, I've got Saturn, Pluto, and Venus in a T-square. So the starting point of this retrograde picks up the theme of my Pluto, Saturn, and Venus T-square in my birth chart across the 2nd, the 8th, and the 11th houses. So as Venus is going retrograde, she is going to be working on some of these issues that maybe present for me. And she's going to be taking me on an inward journey. And while she does this inward journey, she's going to be connecting with Neptune. She's going to be she'll be connecting with Mercury first, because Mercury will move, but she'll be connecting with Mercury. She'll be going into Pisces, connecting with Neptune. Oh, she'll also connect with the Sun, the North Node, and finally Saturn. And then she's going to go direct. And then funnily enough, she's going to be connecting back with all these planets. So, she's taking this theme here on an inward journey from the 5th house of creation and joy. That's in my case, it's the 5th, and into the 4th house, which is, I think, a place of real privacy, where we really keep our inner thoughts to ourselves. Where we're kind of caught unawares. If someone knocks at the door and they find you in your PJs, like with your hair a mess and you haven't cleaned your teeth or something, like makeup streaming down your face, that's your 4th house. Where it's a place where you don't invite other people in unless unless they are part of your home, unless they're part of your family. So this is a place where a lot of your beliefs and behaviors really fit in. So she's coming back on this journey. So to interpret this for me, I would say, what am I struggling with in terms of my creativity that might have to do with maybe not feeling very confident in wider circles? Maybe Venus and Saturn in opposition can show where I might have a crisis of confidence, in particular from my 2nd to my 8th house, where I might have crisis and confidence in moving forwards, in charging money or regular. I mean, I have to say, setting up my community is a bit of a bugbear for me. I really want to do it as well. I am going to do it. So my excuse on Saturday was, oh, my eye. But actually I probably could have done it on Saturday, but I allowed myself to be distracted. Chances are, as Venus was coming into here, it was activating anything. See, I call this, and again, whatever this Venus is connecting with in your chart, it's quite helpful if you know what that thing means. And so in my chart, I call this my self-persecution. It's quite embarrassing saying that, but it's the place of where I really persecute myself, and it's my not good enough. It's my little not good enough little scheme that I have against myself. And so it's quite obvious to me that as Venus is going retrograde over this point, not only are those things going to come up, but my value in terms of my not good enough is going to be worked on at a much sort of more intimate level before moving forwards again. Now, so I recommend that you check that out in your own chart. I also think it's worth researching and diarising. So like whatever you find, you can research, but also diarise, like do some journaling, like how are you feeling? What things to do with the goddess are coming up? Recently, my whole family, we've had these little spottings of animals that have been coming into our life. My 2 eldest have been photographed with owls. Okay, I mean, they were in, it wasn't completely by chance, but we've had this sort of connection with owls. My husband passed a rabbit last night, and like where the wildness, and the nature starts to connect with you. I think these are things that aren't part of your usual routine. Diarise it, journal it. If you have dreams about symbols and things like that, start writing it down and start, like just do this as part of your routine. I think it's quite helpful because you'll start to see what patterns are coming up from your inner psyche. But here's an interesting one that I want to put past you. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be giving you a lot of what was going on for you around this time, because March, April 2027, in particular, from the 4th of March 2017 to the 15th of April 2017, Venus went retrograde at pretty much the same spot. So this time it's 13 Aries, but then then in 2017 it went from 13 Aries. This time it's 10. And she went retrograde to 26 Pisces. This time it's 24. But again, it's pretty much the same area. So for me, it will be reactivating my little self-punishment and my not good enough matrix in my birth chart. But this was the last time she went retrograde over these points. And it's part of an ongoing cycle. So Venus, and I will explain more of this in part 2 for sure, and also at the webinar that I'm going to do on the 11th of March. She goes in this beautiful, again, I can't draw a 5-pointed star, but she goes over the same point every 8 years. And of course, that was in 2017. And now we're coming up, we're in 2025. So it's 8 years ago. So we've got this 8-year pattern that plays out again and again, and it changes ever so slightly as you'll see that this has moved backwards. So it was at 13 and 26. Now it's at 10 and 24. It's shifted backwards a couple of degrees, and that's normal for these 8-year patterns. But, whatever was kind of started around this time, how did it complete? So I'll take you back to what was happening to me, because it's quite significant. at this time in 2017, my husband and I, we were living with our two small children that at the time were really small, like 18 months and I think 4 years old. And we were living as kind of caretakers of a beautiful 92-acre estate in Devon that had a very specific objective, and we were part of the community. We were really involved in the community and doing a lot of stuff to help individuals with additional learning needs and their families, how to support them. My husband was also full-time employed there, and I volunteered. Me and the kids volunteered. It was a great time, lovely. And we were part of this community, and we were living there. And during that time, the charity that we worked for was going through some very big changes, and it was a bit of a takeover going on, I think, behind the scenes. And a load of people were made redundant, and my husband was one of them. Now, we were given a few months. We were given a couple of months to kind of think things through. We were given some options, although those options didn't really... I don't know. It didn't feel like those options were real options, but it felt like the only one that was really available to us was to go for the redundancy. And we'd been umming and ahhing about changing our life and going to live in Portugal, but we'd never had the opportunity to really. It had never really arisen for us. And so this was the moment that we could do this. And so it was interesting. Venus came through this fifth house of where I was really involved in the kids. The fifth house is very much about the children. And I was very playful. I was loving what I was doing, loving being part of this community. And we were on this journey of going back to our home or rethinking our home. And, as she went forwards again, when she came out of her shadow, which was, I think, May time, that was when we needed to make our decision. And we did. We made our decision. We said in a couple of months' time, we're going to be off to Portugal. And that was it. And we left our home of 5 years. And, the work that we'd invested, our time, our memories. And, it was a sort of cutting off point. It was a change in the way we were relating to different things. And of course, this is very much about value. During that time, I felt, to me, this was our COVID point. Like what we went through then, we came across energies that seemed really powerful, that were going to take over the trust that we worked for, the charitable trust that we worked for. And it felt like there were such strong powers that took over things, and they weren't considering the heart. They weren't considering connection. They weren't considering what was best for people. They were considering what was best for money. And so during that time, it felt very much like almost like bullying. It brought up times of childhood. So it really brought up a lot of internal things for me. And absolutely, it did really play into my self-punishment matrix, that's what I've just called it. And this feeling of not good enough really emerged during this time, and had to kind of sort of learn a lot about myself. But actually, as we came out of it, we were feeling a lot more renewed. We were feeling a lot more refreshed. We had connected back into our true values. And actually, our true values were to go somewhere new, somewhere we could be a lot more outdoors, where we could feel a lot more free, where we could feel a much greater sense of well-being, where we could be, growing our vegetables and being in the sun a lot more, and actually being more of a family and reinvest in our family. And that's what we did. And so, these patterns come back. So my question to you is, what was going on for you from this time? So we were going through the internal decision making during this time, but the moves happened like a few months later. But they're significant moves, because it moved us from one country to another. And I haven't been back to the UK in 7 years. Even I'm not that far away either. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But it literally put us on a whole new path. So Venus retrograde can be very, very strong. Obviously, there are other things going on as well, but it was definitely part of our decision-making process. So it took us back to what was really real for us. So it's worth you checking that out. Now, this is a very important point. I am going to be talking about this point so much in the next few weeks, because there's another huge point that happened in 2010, which you might already know about, which also creates big change. And actually in 2010, that was when I met my husband and went on this family journey and had children with him. I've got 3 now, and we've got 3 together. So, you know, this point really is about birthing. So yeah, so have a look and see where it is in your chart. But anyway, let's have a look at the actual Venus retrograde chart and what it's showing. So when Venus went retrograde, she was at 10 degrees in the sign of Aries in a conjunction with the moon. Now I've put it's applying or separating. What that means is, was Venus and the moon they were 2 degrees away from each other at the moment Venus went retrograde, but were they getting closer together or were they separating? So they were getting closer. So at that time, the moon was obviously moving close to Venus and Venus was retrograding back to the moon. So that was getting stronger. That's a strong energy. So immediately right off the bat, this Venus retrograde has something to do with the moon, the psyche, the emotions, the anywhere where we felt cut off from our emotions and relating to our emotions. This retrograde is, I think, really going to be connecting us back in. I realized actually with my eye thing that I had been like a walking head on a stick. You know, I'd been kind of interacting in my head all the time for years, actually, not just months. Really, I've been hyper focused for about 3 years. And I've been this like walking stick with a head on it. And really kind of forgetting about my body. And so I really think Venus is reconnecting our emotions. I think I felt a lot too much 3 years ago, and kind of stopped feeling. I was like cutting off my body a certain amount. So this is definitely a reconnection point for all of us. It's also sextile Jupiter. Again, that's just a difference of 2 degrees. Only Venus is moving away from Jupiter and Jupiter's moving away from Venus, so they're separating, but it's still strong. But that sextile with Jupiter is about well-being. So we can look at this Venus retrograde chart and say, okay, so we're reconnecting to our emotions and also exploring our expansion and well-being. Pretty good. We're doing it in an internal way. And she was also in a square to Mars. Again, she's separating from that. So you can see there's Mars and here's Venus down here. It's quite wide. It's 6 degrees out of that square. And it's getting further and further as she goes retrograde. And so she is reclaiming her femininity in many respects. So again, there's more information. So I've written here, her journey from Aries to Pisces is emotional because it's got the moon, internal, mysterious because it's going into Pisces. Pisces is, this great big ocean and it's like coming into femininity. It's moving away from the masculine femininity and dropping back into the kind of more sacred femininity. One thing I'll mention in part 2 on the 20th or around that time is that right now, at this early part of the retrograde, Venus is still in her evening. She's known as evening star. And this is the more spiritual side of Venus. So she's really working up the rest of what she's learning spiritually. She's the more yin-y kind of Venus right now. She is the more sort of unconditional love kind of Venus, the higher harmonic of Venus. And when she halfway through this journey of this retrograde, she's going to become the morning star again, where she's a lot more assertive in her femininity. So I think in this first part in particular, she is really like tapping into the internal mysteries of what it is to be a female, what it is to have feelings, what it is to relate to people in a gentle and nurturing way. She's moving away from Mars. So I think she's dealing with past confrontations with her masculine nature and outward expansion. So she might realize that, in being a strong person, that she's maybe neglected or undervalued the nature of femininity. So she's moving away from something for sure. So that's my first thoughts about this retrograde chart. She's kind of the female, the gentle, quiet female, the loyal female, the soft female, the more connected or universal female is starting to be recognized again. She's hearing that. It's like, and again, we might see this in the media. We may well see these themes come up, because I always think they do. But I always think, as above, so below. I think the mysteries of life as they seem out there are coming to us, for sure. I didn't mention earlier, but over the last couple of months, while I've been more off, I've not really in my channel so much. I've been reading up about mystery schools. I've been reading up about astrology, anatomy, and different religious texts, linking in like biblical ideas with things that are going on in our actual anatomy, and how they relate to the story of the zodiac. And with this my eye issue, I realized, obviously that you've got the two hemispheres of the brain, and then you've got like the middle path that sort of integrates both of them. And so I was thinking of the sign of Pisces and how it's like this massive ocean, and then thinking, now I haven't read this specifically, but I was thinking about like the parting of the seas, that we often have this left and right kind of mentality, where one thing is dominant and the other is sort of ignored. But actually, as we're coming back into the mystery, as Venus is coming back into this into this Pisces energy, this big ocean, I think she's going to see both sides. She's going to start seeing both sides. And I think that's going to come up for a lot of people. And then once she's kind of been in both sides and kind of washed herself a little bit and seen things from all different sides of different perspectives, she's going to come out the Aries side. And the Aries is like us moving forwards, with no doubts. Pisces is riddled with doubts. I mean, in my birth chart, for instance, which you might have noticed here, I've got my moon and Jupiter in Pisces. I've actually got Ceres there as well, full of doubts. The Pisces energy can really doubt itself, because stronger signs just seem so much more correct, because they believe in themselves. It's not to say they are, but because they believe in themselves a lot more, they can, I, in the company of really strong people, I sometimes doubt myself. And so I think, as we're coming into this Pisces realm with Venus retrograde, I do think, we're all going to be awash, not sure what's going on. But then when we move forwards again into Aries, boy, are we going to be a lot more integrated, not so many doubts, a lot more of a straight line. So I think we're going back into the all so that we can move forwards. And I see that as the embodiment, so this is all mindful. This big ocean is full of different thoughts and stuff, not necessarily helpful to see the big picture, because we can't encapsulate it. We can't sort of process it all in one go. We just we just can't do it. Yet, I think when we're moving forwards into this Aries story, we're taking what we need and we are not doubting ourselves. We are moving forward. So I think that's helpful. The Sabian symbol for this retrograde. Now, try not to get your knickers in a twist if you see this title, because it's like, oh, here we go, presidents. But the Sabian symbol for 10 Aries is the president of the republic or the ruler of one's country. But what this actually means is this symbol shows it's time to take charge, to expand your base of operations, to show that you have the integrity and necessary energies to get things done. It also is about bringing a sense of order and discipline into your life, physically, spiritually, or emotionally. Find your sense of inner power. This is what I'm talking about. Finding your sense of inner power to make it work for you, and don't let others lord it over you. Be in control of your own destiny and individuality. Show that you can be given a position of responsibility and get things done. Now, obviously, that's a lot more yangy than what I'm seeing in the astrology, but it's just one point. It's just one point in the whole zodiac. However, I actually think the journey of this retrograde is taking us inward so that we find ourselves, so that we can come out the other end of it with our own quiet sense of destiny and individuality. But I think to do that, we have to shrug off every other person's ideas and go into the mystery alone. Lots of people report that, Venus is retrograde for 40 days and 40 nights. This time it's 42, just FYI. But, there's lots of stories about, going inwards for 40 days and 40 nights, and then coming out the other end having gone on a bit of a vision quest. And I think that's what's going on right now. But when we come back out, we are in our own responsibility to get things done. Developing willpower, receiving recognition. I think that's inner recognition, being in charge of our own life. So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting and important. Now, when Venus goes direct, this is the chart for it, where she goes direct. She's gone past all of these guys, and she's in the sign of Pisces. So she's in a conjunction with Saturn. So you can see as she moves forwards, she's going to connect with him first. Then she's going to connect with the North Node and Mercury, which is also, I think Mercury will be going, Mercury's direct by then as well, but he's also in Pisces. He's also been on a retrograde journey. She'll be in a trine to Mars, which is very helpful. She's coming into that, and also a square with Jupiter. So I really see that by the time she comes the other side, she's like gone through something deeply personal and life-changing. She's making a commitment to herself. That's Saturn. So the last planet she connects with is Saturn. So she is absolutely connecting with Saturn. It's like a commitment. In my Venus playlist, I talk about Venus and Saturn a lot. I think Saturn connects, between partners. Usually Saturn connects to somebody's points, sun, moon. For instance, my moon is conjunct or connected to my husband Saturn. His sun is connected to mine. So these Saturn connections, they create a commitment where we share a responsibility for somebody or for each other. So we are connecting to a commitment to ourselves. So a commitment to being herself, Venus, to being able to articulate her mysteries, because she's then going to connect with the North Node and then Mercury. So it's like she's committed to herself, or you've committed to yourself in a new way, have found a new direction that feels karmic, that you can articulate. That's quite helpful, because often when we go through these journeys, one of the biggest problems is we can't quite put our finger on what we're saying. That's something that I suffer from a lot, which is a bit of a challenge, in having a channel. And then finally, she will connect with Neptune, in this really strong stellium. I wonder what the children that are born around this time are going to be like. I mean, they're going to have a very unusual focus that we've not really seen before. And so there's this sense of a new mysterious directions, by which time she's already the morning star. So she's a lot stronger in her feminine energy. I've said connecting to pussy power, because, she's coming back into Aries, and, her Venus, Kazemi, was also in Aries. And also, she's moving forwards with a whole new mysterious commitment to herself, and I think that's a real deep level of self-love. I really think that, we're letting everything drop away, going inside to our shamanic cave, and then we're realizing what we need. So this is earthy. This isn't in the head. This is in the body. And, Saturn makes that really clear. Saturn really shows us where we have to consider our bones, our muscles, our form. So she's coming away from this kind of spiritual. She started, if you remember, with the moon and Jupiter's related to faith. So again, this kind of expansion, and she's being brought back into our body, but in a spiritual way, to come forwards really embodied. So that's why I've said connecting to pussy power. And the Sabian for that is the purging of the priesthood. Let's see what that says. This shows, it's interesting, bearing in mind that right now, I think the Pope's not in a good way. So it's interesting it's going on at the same time. This shows seeing through those who hold important positions yet abuse trust, and those who make great claims but don't live up to them. At this time, you're likely to find yourself leaving others behind, kicking them out, or experiencing falls from grace. Periodically, there is a need to examine moral and spiritual sincerity. It's easy to allow those that don't really belong to stay because of familiarity or habit. We can lose sight of the ideal through our rationalizing intellect, ego, and emotive passion. There is a need to cleanse and purify your life, leading to better spiritual values. What side of you are you purging on? Are you the one with the right motives who's in charge? Things holding you back, revealing the truth, throwing out what doesn't measure up, dismissals and redundancies. I mean, I told you that was when, my husband and he went through the redundancy and we had to move out from where we lived and where our life was based. Being a hotshot or not, betrayal of trust, cover-ups. So, yeah, I think, we are going into the mystery of us and then moving forwards. And with that, we're then able to let go of everything that doesn't make sense, that actually demeans us, that isn't part of us feeling confident in ourselves. And we can really move forwards very, very clear and beautiful, in fact. So there's some sort of immediate thoughts. Now, on this inner Venus journey, and again, I'm going to talk more about this when I look at the sign by sign breakdown. She is making a conjunction to Venus. She's going to be sextile Pluto. I mean, she is connecting to pretty much every point. So she's got Mercury and she's got Mars. Obviously, she connects with the moon. She's got Saturn. Jupiter is where she starts with. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And the sun as well. So she is actually going to be connecting to every planet in our toolbox, like from the sun to Pluto. She's connecting to them all during this retrograde. So it's like she's looking at every single archetype as she goes back and then moves forwards. So yeah, this is a very, very involved process. My final thoughts then. Venus retrograde, in other Venus retrogrades, I've spoken more about how, we often look at our emotions and our relationships can sometimes get put under advisement a little bit. We might look at our relationships and think, oh, there were much better days. And we look back to the past. Retrogrades can be quite backward thinking. Sometimes if you're single as well, old flames come back during this time, and it's a time to realize what was good about the past, but also what was naff and why people aren't in our life anymore. Similarly, we can really zero in on something and say, I really need that, and we get really attached to ideas. It's like a real sort of heart relation, like we might see something. I saw these lapis lazuli or lapis lazuli beads the other day, and I was like, I have to have them, must have them, and we see things with much stronger heart, and that's it. There's no sort of there's no way out of it. So I think she does bring up some very, very strong emotions, and there is a real deep purging going on. But I really think this one's a much stronger and more spiritual one. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. Now, if you do want to come to my webinar on the 11th, here's what you can expect. Prior to the webinar, and obviously you'll have to join my membership to come to it. But prior to it, I'll invite you to send me your time, place, and date of birth. And then I'll pick, depending on how many people get in touch, I will get an example of the different placements through the house system. So I'll be looking for somebody who's going through this in their first, their second, their third, their fourth, their fifth, and so on and so forth. And we'll have a conversation about how this might play out for you. And obviously, if you're there, you'll get a chance to, that there'll be a chance to ask questions. I don't know how big it will be because I've never done one for myself. I've always done them for other people. And you'll get a playback as well. So, if you can't be there at the time, because obviously we're across multiple time zones here, you can always ask a question that maybe I answer or tune into during the webinar. But it really will be about honoring our sacred journey, honoring our Venus, understanding how Venus retrograde is working with us and what we can learn from it and how we might move forward. So if that sounds like something for you, then see the links below. Hopefully it'll be a little video and it will tell you about the membership. So anyway, hopefully I'll catch up with you another time, but take care, really take care. Oh, and one last tip, given that there's 40 days and 40 nights, it's actually 42 this time, I recommend you do something for 40 days. You know, that you do some kind of commitment. For me, I'm writing 40 I am statements that I'm going to be saying every day and kind of feeling them. So for instance, the I am, you know, like a spiritual principle of calling in the energy that you are becoming. For me, I am, I don't know what it is. I'm healed, maybe. I am confident. I am whatever it is that you want to invoke in yourself and explore in yourself. That might be one way of doing it. That's the way I'm going to be doing it. But however you do your inner process, you know, this is the time to do it. So anyway, lots of love. Thanks for listening so far. Bye for now.